Welcome into Pressbox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Pressbox and PressBoxOnline.com. With me is my partner in crime on these Wednesday or Thursday night excursions into the world of sports, Gary Stein. Gary, how are you, my friend?
Doing good, partner in crime. How are you?
I'm good. We're doing this week on Wednesday, not to confuse people tomorrow and try and compete against the start of the Raven game, even though we'd be starting well in advance of it. So we elected to do this on Wednesday. That handsome young man below us is an old friend of ours. His name is Joseph Battaglia. And if that last name rings a bell, it's because his father was a dear friend of all of ours. We're going to talk to Joe about the new job he's had over the past couple of years as head football coach at Concordia Prep once we finish this commercial by the Costas Inn, brought to you by the Costas Inn. Each week they bring us our Zooms. We appreciate them sponsoring them. Everybody knows that they are the preeminent place in Baltimore for steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, and then a whole host of specials during the week at the Costas Inn. They're located 4100 North Point Boulevard. As I like to tell people this anecdote, during the pandemic, they realized that a lot of people weren't going to feel comfortable coming to the restaurant, and the only way they'd consume their food is by picking it up. And their curbside has really expanded as a major part of their business. All you have to do is go to their website, CostasInn.com, order your food, pay for your food, and when you pick it up, you don't even have to get out of your car. The Costas Inn, we're proud to have them as our lead sponsor, and we're equally proud to welcome Joseph Battaglia to our show. And Joe, it's really neat. I knew you had that job at Concordia, but I really wasn't focused on it that much. But when we did the piece on you, Greg Swatek did a really nice job in that. It really brought it home for me. Boy, you couldn't have taken over a new football coaching job at a more sort of disastrous time to be starting a program. Take us back when you were hired versus the pandemic. I'm assuming you might have been hired March or April, just as the pandemic was exploding.
It was actually June 26th
of 2020.
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, did in the heat of the shut, not the the big 10-day shutdown or whatever, but still very much shut down, still very much in question about whether schools were going to be back in person and all those type of things, whether there was going to be a football season at all that stuff was still very, very much in question.
So tell me, when you took over the job, I don't know the answer to this. Was there a football program there? How many kids were there in the football program? Because in Greg's article, it alludes to the fact that the school is all of 400 people, 200 of which are boys that can play football. And how many people were you ready to go to war with on June 26th?
So about 400 kids co-ed, grades 6 through 12.
Okay.
I don't know the date to this year's exact numbers, but last year was 159 boys in the entire high school.
Okay.
The program was still it was growing. It was taken. For those that don't know, Concordia Prep is the old Baltimore Lutheran school, where they had football starting back in 2001, and then fizzled out and dropped football in their 2015-16 era there. And then Josh Ward, who's now the head coach at Calvert Hall, restarted the program a few years prior to me coming along. And so I didn't restart the program. Josh actually deserves a tremendous amount of credit for starting from absolute scratch and kind of bringing in, obviously starting the program, getting kids into the program, and developing some growth in terms of wins and losses as well. And so I kind of came in at the right time to do that. And so in terms of numbers wise, really the issue wasn't when I took over. It was more so because of that time of year and coach moving on in the middle of the summer, kind of right before that July 1st date, some kids had left the program kind of prior to me being hired. So taking that group on, and then kind of, as I explained to Greg in the article, taking over, having never coached high school football. So having to restart kind of relationships at the youth level and whatnot, to go into a situation where there was no youth football that next fall in Baltimore County was really, really difficult to do. So our numbers dropped a little bit from the transition of coaches, as well as not being able to surge, because with coach, being able to go out and find kids, it's on the ground. It's showing up to youth practices and games and that stuff just didn't exist in the fall of 2020. And so that's why a huge part of our program is so young right now, is because we've put tremendous amount of effort to kind of rebuilding the numbers part of it and drop off.
Joe, if I could ask you, if you could get a tiny bit closer and move up,
Sure.
The mic you have is not picking you up entirely great.
Okay.
Gary, you got a couple for Joe?
Yeah. So Joe, I'm definitely a numbers guy. Okay. So you have 159 boys in high school. So basically you have a pool of 159 potential players. Okay. How many players are on your team?
Right now we are in the mid 60s range right now.
Okay. So 60 of 160 basically play football, boys, at Concordia Prep. That's about 40% of all boys play football at Concordia Prep. Okay. So my question is, knowing that you had such a small pool of players to pick from, and knowing that the program, I know you didn't start it necessarily.
Gary, he knows he's got to be a great coach. That's what he knows.
What my question is, what gave you confidence in the fact that you could do this? Your margin for error was very slim, is what I'm saying.
For sure. Just like any organization or team or whatever, it's your support network, right? It's the administration supporting what you're trying to do. It's the other coaches that are around you. And then also getting to know the families and the community within here, and kind of, really a special opportunity for me, especially kind of like that senior class that we had last year that kind of came in at the very beginning stages of this new program and had kind of fought to this point, as a lot of buy-in from a lot of different areas. So I'm just a small piece of all of this, and that's the thing. I guess my smartest move was just recognizing that I had that type of support and was able to build that type of network within this school, because one of the things that I wanted to identify is that, I wanted, having grown up in this community, played at Gilman, my dad coached youth and high school football for a long, long time. I knew that, the biggest part of that is having a supportive network around you, an administration that wants to be successful, not just at football, but academically, socially, all those type of elements. And that's the thing that when I looked at a couple of different jobs in the local area, that's what I identified. I identified as administration that wanted to be supportive and successful in all those areas, and it's been everything that I hoped for.
So you brought up your dad. Obviously, like you say, your dad coached Gilman under Sherm Bristow. I think he also coached there under Vic Poggi, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right.
Gilman is in the A conference. They may have fallen on some hard times a couple of years ago, but perennially they're pretty good. What's the biggest? But you're in the B conference. What's the biggest difference, in your opinion, between B conference football and A conference football?
I think the easy answer for that is depth, right? When we're talking about our numbers, right? 60 kids in our total program, where some of the other schools that are much bigger schools, you're talking about programs that have 150 kids in their program. And so that comes down to, obviously just number of players, and just like any other sports, or especially football at any level, right? It's a war of attrition, who's healthy at the right time, and those type of things. Depth comes into major play in the football. So I think that's probably the easy answer between, kind of A and B, is just kind of obviously the size of school in most situations. But I also think that, again, new to high school football, but I'm not new to this league by any stretch. I think the gap is way more narrow than it's ever been. I think when I was a kid, if a B team beat an A team, that was, that was the New York Jets over Baltimore Colts. That was a massive, massive upset. Whereas nowadays it happens quite often. Not quite often, but it happens. I mean, this year we beat McDonough, who's a really good A conference team. Last year we beat Gilman. We beat Loyola in the B conference championship last year, which they are now in the A conference as well. And we're not the only capable team. St. Mary's just beat Loyola this year in the A conference. So I think the gap has narrowed, and really it just comes down to really size of school for the most part.
Joe, I wanted to follow up on something, and I can't remember if I'm at the wrong state, you'll correct me. I thought your first job was down in North Carolina. Was it?
I went to school in North Carolina, and then
Okay.
my first job was in central Pennsylvania, a small school.
Central Pennsylvania.
Correct.
And you ended up, and there may have been a stop in between.
A bunch
You
of them.
ended up at Navy, and you worked under Ken Niumatalolo. Tell me about how all your different jobs leading up to this really prepared you for what I know you've wanted to do from day one, which was to be a head coach in high school, which I find really a noble thing and a sensible thing. But tell me about that, how all the other jobs prepared you for this job.
For sure. I mean, I've really been blessed to work for some really, really good people that ran great programs. I think what's interesting about my track is I've coached at every level of college football, and now at high school football. So I've been able to see, especially for this job, right? Yeah, being at Navy there's a whole lot that comes to that, right? Obviously, I'm sure we'll get into that, but being at a small school like Juniata, if it's like just a small program, a small school, lower resource, right? Understanding that aspect, more of a student athlete type at that level of football, just like high school. Just little elements of every different piece is certainly played into it. You know what I mean? And just like anything else in any other profession, you're going to learn what you like, what you don't like, how you would want to do it. And those different, just learning from those different experiences, winning, losing, all that stuff, who you want to be, and kind of develop your philosophy from there, and then just put it to work.
For those who don't know, because they may know the last name Battaglia, Joe's dad was Coach Buzz Battaglia, who was in the auto parts business, but did a lot of coaching and a lot of rec. He sort of was the guy who led the Baltimore County rec league and all that. I'm not trying to be funny here, and I doubt when the game starts that you hear your dad talking to you. But when you're alone in your office at night, concocting what the game plan is, scripting plays, does his voice ever come in and talk to you?
All the time, but not in that fashion. Not in X's and O's. I think what I took from my dad.
Take the garbage out.
No,
help your wife at the house.
Just, I think in the sense of, I think his ability to create relationships, maintain relationships, and cultivate them has been a huge part on me. I don't know that I could ever duplicate. I think he was special in that manner. But my dad, similar deal, right? Coached youth football, high school football, that kind of stuff. I mean, he wasn't an X's and O's guy. He wasn't Nick Saban. He just understood people really, really well. Understood how to motivate them, how to be sympathetic and empathetic when he needed to be, how to be hard on people at times. And that's where I think I cultivated the most. I think what I learned, to put it simply, is treat people right and do the right thing, and the ball's going to bounce your way. And I try to keep that in my back pocket as best as possible, and hope to live up to kind of what he accomplished.
Gary, I want to just jump in with one more real quick, and that is, you were at Navy. That's a pretty darn good position to position yourself for maybe a small college job to start off with that could have led somewhere. I called it noble, but your goal was to do just what you're doing now. Is that correct? And
Correct.
Can you expound on that a little bit? Why you were just as soon do what you're doing now than chase the dream of maybe one day being the head coach locally here somewhere else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of always my plan to come back to high school and come back to high school in this area. I didn't know if it would happen when I was 30 or when I was 60. I didn't know when that was, but especially as a young person and not as having as many attachments as a family and those type of things, I wanted to, just like anybody else, try to rise to the top and see, where I could, take myself in the profession, but always knew that I'd come back because again, I had, the father figure that I did and some great coaches as well outside of my father in high school that, I wanted to duplicate that as best as I could because I understood the impact that it had on people and I wanted to have a similar type of impact. And also knowing that, outside of all that, the family aspect of it. And if you know anything about the college coaching profession, it's brutal
Yeah.
on your family, having to move all the time and countless hours and all those type of things. And so I knew I didn't, I wanted to emulate my dad as a coach, but also wanted to emulate him as a father and as a husband and those type of things too. And so that's why I kind of always knew. And I've always had a tremendous affinity for high school football in this area. And so 13 years in college from North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Texas, all those type of stuff. I always recruited the state of Maryland. I always was very involved, always cultivating relationships with coaches in this area. Cause again, I was just kind of born into it. So I've always had a great passion for high school football in the area. So I just knew that it would always lead me back to
Great
here.
answer, Gary.
So Joe, it's interesting. You said your dad wasn't an X's and O's guy. By the way, did you actually ever play for your dad?
I did growing up.
Was it in youth or high school or what?
Youth, and then in high school he was on the staff as well. He didn't really coach me specifically at the high school level, but was on the staff with Coach Bowden.
So if he wasn't an X's and O's guy, and last year your record was 10-2 when you won the championship, and now what are you, 7-1, 6-1, and you're in line to repeat potentially, right? You must be getting the X's and O's right? So where did you get the X's and O's from?
I think it's a collection of all of it. Really from the youth game to high school, obviously had a great bunch of coaches again, played for good coaches in college, and then being around a ton of great coaches kind of at the next level and always having a passion for kind of that piece of it too is, just kind of how my brain works. I've always kind of tied myself to the elements of coaching football schematically and angles and numbers and all those type of things. I think that's something that was ingrained in me really, really young. I just took a passion for it even as a really young player. And so I don't know, I'm a football junkie. You know what I mean? If I can learn a way to do it or the best way to do it or a different way to do it, it kind of captures my brain a little bit, but
right.
I don't create anything new or anything. I just try to as hard as I can to learn from other people of how to get it done.
So Joe, I'm curious about this. You coach young boys that are between the ages of 15 and 18, basically, in that range. Some of them are going to go on to college. Some of them, have that potential. The college game has changed dramatically now with the advent of NIL and the portal and all these, it's just a whole new ball game as far as college. I wonder what your conversations are like with your players. Like, are they asking different questions? Are you telling them different things? How do you talk about the potential of college football with your players who may want to go on and do that?
We talk about it a lot. One of my goals here is to use the game of football as a vehicle to put people in a more successful situation. And if playing football can do that, whether it be a couple scholarship dollars or a better financial aid package somewhere, or whatever it may be, whatever the level, we try to educate our families on that because obviously it can be a vehicle to make your situation better. So we put a lot of effort into arming our families with knowledge of what that process is, because I think that's been the interesting thing for me coming from the college level to the high school level is how little people do really know about the recruiting process and kind of all the myths and craziness that people kind of put out there in terms of how the process is. And so we talk about it a lot. We talk it with the families a lot. I do about twice a year, we do a Zoom with each class of kid, because recruiting for a senior looks a lot different than a recruiting for a freshman in terms of, just making sure you're preparing yourself for that moment when it does come time, and et cetera. So we put a lot of effort into that. I'm blessed to have a great staff around me that's got college experience as well, where those guys do a great job of helping me with that process too. And so, yeah, we're that's probably what I field most phone calls about, honestly, is what should I be, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? What to do with that? And we again, just try to put people in really good positions. And also, it's kind of interesting in my path. I was, at one point I was working at Stevenson University down the road, and I was an admissions counselor who was coaching football. And so I've got a really unique experience in terms of just the whole college process. And so there's plenty of kids here that won't play college football that I think we also kind of help families with that whole process too, just because we got a unique experience around us in terms of doing that. That's, I mean, we're Concordia Prep, we're a college preparatory school. And I think a big part of that is the process of which to get to that place.
Joe, I meant to ask you, are you a teacher there? Do you teach a subject?
I do now. When I first got here, it was mainly administrative. I'm an assistant principal and assistant AD. This year, I did take on 2 middle school phys ed classes as well. So that's a new experience for me too. So again, with anytime you're at a small place like we are, you're going to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the other guys wearing the hats, your assistant coaches. If we're talking to John Harbaugh, he's probably got 16 people, 16 assistants of varying
more
importance.
Actually, Stan, like 25.
25 now. I'll bet when your dad knew Don Schuler, Don McCafferty, they had 8 or 10. Tell us a little bit about your staff.
I mean, I think it's as good a staff as you can ask for in the entire country. I don't have time to kind of talk about everybody, but a couple core people that have kind of been here from the jump or really are able to give a ton of time to us. Our defense coordinator, Donnell Brown, who is a homegrown kid, played at Poly, was one of the first players at Stevenson, that first class that we recruited when we started the program at Stevenson, played for me there. Coached with me at Bethany College and is now here. He teaches a multitude of things here in the building, as well as our defense coordinator, assistant head coach. Just an unbelievable leader of men. And just when we talk about relationships, nobody does a better job than that. I mean, he's an incredible mentor for our kids. As well as we have Miss Jenna King, who teaches in the middle school here, who's a really interesting story. She was a former director of player personnel at University of Tennessee Martin, as well as worked at the football office at Towson University as well. And so she comes from a family of teachers, knew she always wanted to teach, and found a place where she felt like she could get her football fix as well as teach as well. But she does a lot of the recruiting part too, and also coaches our running backs. Again, I'd love to rip off everybody. I don't want to sell anybody short, but I could go on all day. Again, it's great to have an article, and I love our program, all that kind of stuff. But I'm such a small piece of what is taking place here and the people that are pouring into our kids.
It was interesting that Ken Niumatalolo in his quote mentioned your humbleness. You've always been a pretty humble guy. I'm wondering, and you don't have to name him, but I'm wondering if you look over at your coaching staff and see somebody young, about 13 years younger than you, that you say, this guy, I know he's got the fire to do this. I want to help bring it out on the coach. Is anybody there?
I think it's a multitude. We're a really young staff.
Yeah.
And so with that, you see little pieces of each individual. And that's another reason why I wanted to be a head coach, was I wanted to create a platform where we built other coaches that go out into our community and create programs to help lead kids to a better level or a better situation. And so that's a bit of a mission for us. And so again, a ton of them where you see, all right, this guy's got a great passion, or this guy's got a really good understanding of the game, and just trying to work through the maturity of, I was told a long time ago, before I became a defensive coordinator, you don't ever learn how to be a defense coordinator until you do it. And then I felt like it's the same thing as a head coach. And so just trying to arm people with different responsibilities and those type of things. But I guess the easy answer is to go back to Coach Donnell Brown. I think he's going to be on this Zoom call with you guys one day at a school in the area. That he's going to be a phenomenal.
He's that good. Okay. Harry, you got one or two more for Joe, and then we'll let him get to work on his game plan for this week.
Absolutely. You got a big game coming up. I wonder, and I know this is at a different level at the NFL level. You hear a lot about coaches burnout. Joe Gibbs used to sleep in his office, burned out. Dick Vermeil was great, went to the Super Bowl, left the NFL, came back, went to another Super Bowl. What's your schedule like? How many hours do you put into a week coaching football? What time of the night do you stay up until?
I don't know that I have an exact number on the hours, but it's a lot. Everything's a little, one of the kind of things that's interesting to me is one of the reasons you go back to, I mentioned family, right? So you think, okay, high school, a little bit lower level, it's going to be a little less time. It's a less time in terms of figuring out the X's and O's, but then there's, again, you're a smaller operation, you wearing more hats. So now there's just more things to overdue. So, it's a lot. I'm sitting in my office right now. I'm here for the start of the school day around 7:00, and depending on the day and the situation, I do try to push to get out of here as quickly as possible with 2 little ones at home. I'm trying to make that a priority. But sometimes I'm my own worst enemy and kind of keep grinding away at it. So it's a lot of hours in the fall. My wife jokes that she's a single mom in the fall, but it is a ton of hours, but it's a job of passion, and again, a huge network to it. And a lot of those hours are not so much game planning again, but again, me and my wife scrubbing jerseys on a Saturday after a Friday night game.
Wow. Yeah, you got to do it all. Final thought for me, it's not so much a question, but a comment. Now with the advent of technology, obviously we're on Zoom here and streaming now. Your games are broadcast live or streamed live, I should say. Mm-hmm. I've actually listened to a couple. I think Griffin Bass and Miles Goodman do a great job, but I just think it's interesting and neat the fact that it's easy to follow your team, or really most high school teams now with the advent of technology. It's awesome.
It is really cool. I think a lot of our momentum has come from our kind of social media. We've made a big push when I got here with that. And then that was something that we have a parent here that runs AC Sports, John Miller, who's incredible, that donates a lot of time to put that on. And then just, again, with relationships, Stan knows Miles and I go a long way back. Yeah. Just calling him and, hey, you ever thought about calling high school football games?
Right.
Doing those type of things. And it's been really cool because when I got here, I got the job. The first family that I spoke to, they said, do you think we could get a PA announcer? We'd really like to, you know what I mean? And so I started with no PA announcer, and now we've got I got a production meeting for our live stream tomorrow morning. Coming game. So we've done it, but again, it's a lot of people donating their time for that too. So it's really cool and cool for our kids.
Hey, Joe, real quick before we go, for those that don't know and say, boy, I'd like to go support that team. What's the support been like in the nearby community, and where are your games played, and how many more home games do you have this year?
So we play right here on campus at Concordia Prep, which I get all the time. People say, oh, I thought that was a rec field over off of 695, but it is that field that was a rec field on 695, right across from Lock Raven High School.
Okay.
In the heart of Towson here. And we play here. We've got 2 remaining home games. This weekend is homecoming, where we're actually going to honor the Baltimore Lutheran teams. This is the 20th season total for football here. So we're going to honor them at 1:00. And then the following Saturday, we will be home as well. You can catch us on Instagram at Concordia Prep FB, which gives you a lot of information about the upcoming game and what's going on in the program. And then you, as mentioned, AC Sports on YouTube, and they have their website as well now, AC Sports with John Miller. You can catch all our games there, but come out. It's nothing like it. We've really built a cool atmosphere here in the last couple of years, and it's really a testament to our kids and what they've done and put in, and people. They're fun to watch. So come check them out.
Joe, I couldn't be prouder of you. Your dad is up there smiling at you. I know that. We appreciate it. Last quickie that I have for you. I know when you were much younger, you would have been watching the Raven game tomorrow night. Are you able to carve out a little time to watch the home team?
I do. I think Coach Buzz would be striking against me if I didn't cut a little bit of time out for the Ravens. But I do. I don't. I'm a huge college football fan, but when I'm in my own deal, I don't get a chance to watch it. I don't watch any other NFL teams, but I do. While I'm trying to catch up on Sunday with my boys as much as I can, I got the game on in the background. Always locked into the Ravens for sure.
Did you like that play that they came up with Andrews taking the snap and pitching it? Was that a creative play?
You're gonna think I'm crazy, but we had similar type scenario where we were actually, because we had a kid that plays. We actually were going to run a similar type play last week, and we caught a delay of game instead of actually running that. No, I mean, obviously I saw them and do it as well, where they go under center and all that kind of stuff. But awesome play. Really did a great job to pull that game out. So really cool.
All right. Really proud of you, Joe. Continued success, and we'll see you down the road. Okay.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
All right. We want to thank Gary Stein and our guest, Joe Battaglia. And Joe, you don't have to hang around. I know you got better things to do. Next week, Gary, we're going to also tackle this on Wednesday night, not because of a Raven game on Thursday, but because our guest, Sarah Ellison, formerly of BaltimoreRavens.com, is able to join us next Wednesday. She's a very astute observer of the Baltimore Ravens. She's going to join us at 7:00 next Wednesday, November 2nd.
Sounds good.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon, and thank you for coming on with us. We thank the Costas Inn, as always, 4100 North Point Boulevard. Again, curbside. If you're not comfortable going into a restaurant, or you just really like eating at your house, you want to grab some crabs or some of their specials, go to CostasInn.com. You can order your food online, pay for it online, and pick it up. You don't even have to get out of your car at 4100 North Point Boulevard. For Gary Stein, I'm Stan the Fan. We'll see you down the road in a few days. Bye.